Hey, this is Eva with Teens in the Driver's Seat Teen Advisory Board. Thanks for attending today's session. Here are some tips to help make this session a great experience. We are committed to saving lives and reducing crashes on our roads and request each participant commit to connecting to our event from a safe location. Please do not connect while driving or operating any form of machinery. First, notice the panel to the right with several tabs. Here is where you can chat, ask questions, retrieve handouts, and see answered polls. The chat is public and you are encouraged to say hello and answer any prompts that appear there. If you have questions, post those in the Q&A window. Any handouts can be downloaded from that tab, and finally, poll questions will appear directly on your screen. The presenter invites questions. Type those into the Q&A window anytime. The prize drawing for a $50 gift card will be held at the end of the session. Make sure you stay on for that. Finally, at the conclusion of the webinar, please complete a very quick survey for this session, which will help the presenter and us improve in the future. Enjoy the session.
Hi, my name is Kim Edwards, and I'm one of the administrators at Deer Park High School South Campus in Deer Park, Texas. And I was asked to share with you about how we get the amount of students to complete the survey by Teens in the Driver's Seat. So in the past, we did our surveys through an advisory period, and students were encouraged to complete it. This year, because of some of our remote learners and students being much more comfortable with technology, we did do our survey online, and we received almost 800 surveys from one of our advisory periods given to students. And so again, that's how we did it, and that's how we get a large number of students to complete the survey. So good luck to you this year, and I'm very happy to represent Teens in the Driver's Seat. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Hello and welcome. I'm Joanne Mayra Melendres, and I'm one of the TDS Teen Advisory Board members with the Teens in the Driver's Seat program. Our presenter today is Dr. Judith Tindall, with the session Taking Your Organization from Peer-Driven to Peer-Led. Dr. Tindall is a licensed psychologist and consultant. She is president of the National Association of Peer Program Professionals, NAPPP. She has appeared on radio and TV on a variety of topics, including Good Morning America. She has been a participant in the Bowling Summit in Washington, D.C. She has provided peer training nationally and internationally, including the UN SOS program, South Korea, Egypt, Alaska, and 45 lower states, and has written numerous books. Additionally, Dr. Tindall assisted NTHSA in evaluating 3 projects and the FFA to create a national evaluation model and needs assessment for their programs, which included the development of the Zero Tolerance for Underage Drinking and Driving, seatbelt, and drowsy driving curriculum.
Welcome, I'm Dr. Judy Tindall, and I am president of the National Association of Peer Program Professionals that's bringing you this particular program. And just to tell you a little bit about us, our vision is really establishing a culture of people helping people. That's exactly what all of you are doing. And our mission is very specific. It helps adults establish, train, and supervise and maintain and evaluate peer programs so that peers can help each other with maximum effectiveness. And that's what our program is going to be about. What we're going to try to do off the bat is to help you learn why peer programs are effective, some of the highlights of some of the studies and research, not all of them, but that they're in your handouts. And really, why does peer leadership work as opposed to teacher leadership, for example? We're going to introduce you to the programmatic standards and ethics, and hopefully you will read and reread and guide yourself in what you're going to do with your peers. So we want to take your organization from being peer-driven to peer-led, where the peer helpers really are the leaders in their projects, of course, with your supervision and training. So let's kind of narrow down what is peer helping. It's really a variety of interpersonal helping behaviors assumed by trained students who undertake a helping role with others. Now, this is very, very broad, but the key words I think for you is trained students, and they are put in a role where they help others. I think that's a key thing. Some typical examples include, of course, just the one-on-one helping and listening. That obviously changes lots and lots of things. Obviously, discussion leadership, and of course, the big one for many of you is the peer education, highway traffic safety piece. Of course, tutoring, advisement, service learning, conflict mediation, mentoring, leadership training, all activities of interpersonal helping that assist other people. So here, peer helping implies the use of human capital that are invaluable resources in the helping community. And keep in mind, if you do remember what our mission was, is to establishing a culture of people helping people. So this is kind of what we're going to be talking about throughout the day. And one of the things that all peer helping programs have in common is we provide peers with training, so they offer a variety of services to others, aided by supervisions trained by trained adult leaders. That is a key component, trained adult leaders. So some of the different roles, typical roles that peers have, of course, are peer helping. And that's where, particularly during this COVID, we have lots of frustration and peers are listening to each other. We also have a lot of conflict. So we have a lot of peer mediation happening. We have peer ambassadors that help new people learn technical skills, possibly in trade schools or even in regular schools. Of course, tutoring is very common. And of course, peer help education, where you educate your peers about highway traffic safety issues and try to create a norm that this is the thing to do. So in terms of our professional adult roles, when we're thinking about our teachers, our sponsors, of course, your role is to help train your peer helpers that follow the programmatic standards and provides very specific training to what you're wanting them to do. So I'd like for you to begin by getting a piece of paper out. And let's go to the next slide, because I want you to really draw, in your case, 5 different blocks. So the why, just draw one block there. The what is above that. And these are just squares. The who is above that. How and when is above that. And where is above that. So as I'm talking, I want you to take notes to help you understand why these building blocks are so critical for an effective peer program. So let's look at that first why. And I want you to be thinking about why it is that you're doing whatever it is that you're doing. Is it because you have a high DWI rate between 16 and 18-year-olds? Is it because you have many car crashes that injure young people, 16 to 18? Is it that you have a 30% usage of seatbelts in your community for young people? These are all questions that you need to answer. And as we go through our presentation, we're going to talk about how effective peer programs are. First of all, they're very cost effective. They build assets, and this is all in your handout, so you don't need to necessarily write these things down. They're very helpful in terms of tutoring, in terms of creating positive youth development, reducing dropout rate, and increasing protective factors. And we're going to get into some of these ideas. And big one is around highway traffic safety, that they really, truly have been shown to show a difference in terms of helping their peers. Also in terms of smoking prevention, over a 3-year study where they found the peer-led education was much more effective than the teacher-led education. So those things are all, wonderful in terms of effectiveness. So spend some time reading through some of the research that does support why peer helpers are effective. And effective things that we've learned just recently is good selection of those peers is critical, a good program structure, and full support where the young people definitely have ownership in what is going to happen. So on that bottom block, I'd like for you to put, at least in a pencil, why is it that you're doing what you're doing right now? Just write that in, just jot that down. And we're really going to talk about, the continuing with this building blocks throughout our talk today. But if you look at the next slide, which is looking at what happens in most high schools and peer programs, there's a variety of things that peer helpers can do once they're trained. And of course, the main area that you're interested in is highway traffic safety group lessons. But there may be other things within that you want to create, such as activities of seatbelt checks, just a variety of things. But once they're trained, you can actually train them in other areas that may have a tremendous need in your school or your community. They may need to work as mentors to help maybe those brand new students coming to the high school. That's just an example. So you can look at this list and think of, what is it that we are going to specifically do? So right now, I want you to put on that what block what you are currently thinking about that you want to do. So put that down, and you may go back and add some things and scratch it out, but at least you've got something in line. So let's go on to slide 9, which has to do with thinking about NAPPP's program standards. Basically, you, the adult professional, and the leaders in the program really have to have a very structured program design, quality training, and then make sure that your peer leaders, your peer helpers, have service activities that follow training. Then they are supervised by adult professionals, and there's an evaluation process that does help identifying the strengths and weaknesses and assesses that as data and maybe makes changes the next year. So going back to thinking about those programmatic standards, here we go on to the next one. What we really want is to begin to build assets in our young people. And we're going to specifically talk about our peer helpers, peer leaders, whatever you're calling them. The Search Institute has what we call the 40 developmental assets that you can go online and read about this. But it really talks about external and internal assets. It's the next slide. And it really assesses what kind of assets young people have in terms of external assets, what kind of support. Are they empowered? Are there boundaries and expectations set for them? And are there in the community constructive use of their time? And of course, peer helping is perfect for this. Internally, are they committed to learning? Do they have positive values? Do they have social competencies and positive identity? And if we think about peer helping, those skills really develop all those external and internal assets. So let's go on to the next slide where we talk about the power of assets. And if you notice that those with 31 to 40 assets obviously succeed at school values diversity, maintains good health, 91%, and exhibits leadership, 86%. The average assets for peer helpers, where we've done studies, is 35 to 40. So you can see most of your peer helpers are in that very powerful purple section. And on the other side of it, obviously, it is the power to protect problem alcohol use. This is the next slide. Illicit drug use, sexual activity, and violence. So you can notice that how effective, the more assets you have, does protect in a variety of things. So let's look at the levels of assets in youth, where we know that about 37% of our youth have 21 to 30 assets, down to 13% have 0 to 10. So we know that you're going to have the peers that they're helping, will have all kinds of assets. And if we look at the average assets per grade level, which is the next slide, and we're looking primarily at high school, the average assets for ninth graders, 20.5, and 10th graders on up to 12th graders, it's 19.4. What we have found is that as youth grow older, they tend to have less assets. We're not sure why, but they have less assets. So obviously what we're wanting to do is make sure those peer leaders, peer helpers have a lot of assets, and those that they try to help, they also have assets. So what's the secret of a good program? Let's look at the next slide, which looks at important ingredients for success. And the key things I want to point out is the strong program coordinator. That's the teacher, that's the sponsor. And looking on down, that's very important, is of course student commitment and ownership. Again, this has to do with helping our program be effective. So you can look at this. This is what the research is showing, that when all of these things are put together, you're going to have great peer helping program. On the other hand, it's important to know, why do programs fail? And the reason programs fail, go on to the next slide. The reason programs fail is lack of ownership of the peer helpers. So you've got to make sure that they are consistent, that they're part of this, and failure to provide continuous leadership as the adult professional. And of course, obvious things such as burnout, promising more than can be delivered, not utilizing your peer helpers, and failure to bring new on challenges and lack of funding. So if we look at the standards overview, if you look on the left, one of the critical pieces, of course, is selection. And this is getting to the who. So we're talking about selection of the adult professional, selection of those peer leaders. Those are all very critical. So how are we going to do that? How is that selection going to happen? Training, who will be doing the training in terms of the role, confidentiality, communication skills, problem solving, and then of course, highway traffic safety skills. Then we want them to deliver, actually make sure that they have an opportunity to deliver these activities. So that's kind of an overview a very quick overview of our program standards. And you see in your handout the programmatic standards and ethics. So continuing on with the who, let's just very briefly talk about kind of our roots, our historical timeline of the peer movement. Started back in the late 60s of using students as counselors. And finally in 86, National Peer Helpers Association was incorporated. And if you move on down, recently, we had the name change to the National Association of Peer Program Professionals. And then we revised our programmatic standards and ethics and our rubric. We now offer training institutes. We offer certifications and online training for adult professionals in a variety of areas for peer programs, however you decide that you want to use them. So again, going back to the why, and this is at the bottom, again, what's your rationale? Why are you doing what you're doing? Let's go on to the next slide. The next thing, of course, is important staffing. Looking at the background of those that are the professional leaders, those characteristics. And let's go to the next slide and look at those essential characteristics for staffing, characteristics that is listed in the programmatic standards. But obviously, it's important that you, the professional, have a strong positive rapport with the community that you're serving and the students that will be your peer leaders. Obviously, lots of educational and practical experience. It's important that you have somebody from the school community that knows your students and knows the community and really is committed to the whole peer helping principles. They also have to have a grasp of program needs and very sensitive to to confidential issues. Always being able to teach and train different learning styles, work with groups effectively, have good training skills, and the ability to and skills to supervise a program, good time management, and a wonderful role model. So those are characteristics of that professional staff that we're really looking for. A key thing, this goes back to the who, looks at how do you select and what criteria are you going to use for the selection of your peer leaders, and making sure that they represent the population that they're serving. That's very important. And with those, with that particular selection process, we're really looking at two phases, which is the next one, which is a recruitment process. So really planning about how you're going to recruit those peer leaders, peer helpers. How are you going to identify them? Are you going to use an application process in terms of picking those young people? But keep in mind that the next slide, that these, once you implement your program, it must reflect the nature and goals of your program, always considering the needs and characteristics of the population you're serving, an appropriate curriculum, and being consistent with your local school rules as well as national programmatic standards and ethics. So when we talk about training, which is on the next slide, we're really talking about, and this goes up to the who, how, and when. So that we're talking about training and supervision. Obviously, in any skill that you teach, you want to demonstrate. So you want to, and it's like a basketball. If you're a basketball coach, you're bouncing the ball, you're showing them how to go through the hoops. And then you have them practice and develop that skill, continue practicing with them, then giving them feedback and critiquing, and then helping them apply what they've learned. So basically, that's the area that we're doing. And so we're really referring to, and this is the next slide, interactive, which is on the one with the squiggly lines, versus non-interactive, which is the one with the teacher at the front going directly out to the students. So we're really talking about interactive versus non-interactive kinds of teaching, which is the typical learning, experiential learning cycle, which is the next slide. So we obviously going through around the circle, we're obviously doing what we're doing, we're publishing it, we're processing, we're generalizing, and we're applying. So it's that experiential learning cycle which many good teachers use. But the idea is, of course, to work together with the students taking that ownership. And when we think about training, we're really looking at very specific training that needs to be involved, such as the role of the peer helper, confidentiality and liability issues, communication skills, problem solving, and of course, what is it you're going to have them do? And so this gets into the how and when. So we think about obviously continuing to provide service delivery where they get a chance to provide meaningful kinds of work for others. We also need to continue supervising them with their activities. That's a critical piece. And then we continue to, Cindy, go on to the supervision one. Right, what goals do we have? And then go on and show a typical supervision meeting. And that's where you have some feedback for what's happened. What are we going to do next? And then finally, the evaluation piece, which involves definitely the first year process evaluation, impact if you have a grant, any kind of outcome or cost benefits. So these are just examples of what's involved with the how and when and where. So obviously we can help. You've written a few notes down. If you want to contact us with some of your ideas, please feel free to do that because we have, of course, certification processes and training. So please think about joining NAPPP and continue on down the slides. We also have a online training that you may be interested in doing. We have online peer mediation training as well as online training for youth and adults in specific areas, particularly around highway traffic safety. So consider our resources, our bookstore, our publications, and things that you can purchase. Some of you may decide to do bicycle safety. That's kind of really fun for your younger peers. And please feel free to contact us at any time. Our resources are the national, it's the Association of Peer Program Professionals. And we have, position statements that can help you do whatever you need to do. But we're at 58 Port West Court, St. Charles, Missouri. And you can see our email, NAPPP 2020@gmail.com. So please go to our website, www.peerprogramprofessionals.org, and learn more about us, and particularly sign up for our online training. Hopefully your building blocks make some sense, and we've really appreciated spending time. And if you have questions, I'm going to be available for any questions. Thank you for participating.
This is Joanna Melendres with the TDS Teen Advisory Board. A quick thank you to our presenters and to you for attending this session. Congratulations to the prize winner! You will receive your gift card in the email used to register for this summit. And don't forget to take the survey! And have a great rest of your day.